ترك الدين إمام وارتدى ثوب الضلال. قلت والله حرام. قال أغواني غزال مر بالصبح ببابي قمرا بين النجوم. كنت أصلي ثم صليت لريم. قلت ما لون غزالك؟ قال في لون الجبال. قلت ما طيب غزالك؟ قال عطر البرتقال. قلت ما وصف غزالك؟ قال في الوجه هلال وعلى المفرق شمس وعلى الوجنة Sobrali sa sobrali malkinemo mi srednine popreli koliko popreli legnali ta se zaspali spali so koliko pospali. Prva samo me razbudi, prva samo me razbudi. Sina družki vikaše, stanite družki da vidim marikomu kakvo je lipsalo. Stanite družki da vidim marikomu kakvo je lipsalo. Mene družki lipsalo na bela šika gerdanče. Mene družki lipsalo na bela šika gerdanče. Tora mominka vikaše mare mene družki lipsalo. Mene družki lipsalo mare na tanko košče kolanče. Treta mominka vikaše mene družki lipsalo. Treta mominka vikaše mene družki lipsalo. Mene družki lipsalo mare na tanko snaška sukmanče. 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 Hello there, everyone. This is Mira Awad from Tel Aviv, and welcome to the Shelter in Place sessions. Hi to you, everyone in New Mexico and Oklahoma. I'm so happy to be with you this evening. So, I am Mira, and I'm here based in Tel Aviv right now. Half Palestinian, half Bulgarian, singer-songwriter, and other things. Content creator, writer, ceramic maker, and artivist. I call myself an artivist because I use all my art in order to convey my ideas, my ideology, my things that I believe in, which mainly are about human solidarity and the brotherhood of man. I started with a Palestinian folk song and went into a Bulgarian folk song, just for you to get a taste from the roots that I come from. So I grew up in a mixed house, like I said. The first language I ever spoke with was Bulgarian because at the time my mother had come back with my father from his studies, his medicine studies in Bulgaria. So she came with him to Israel and established a home and a family, and she couldn't speak any Arabic nor Hebrew at the time. So my first language was actually Bulgarian, and I heard a lot of Bulgarian music at home. Of course, Arab music as well existed there, and later on I picked up Arabic after I picked up Hebrew. So there you go. I had like Hebrew coming into my life before Arabic even. But mostly you're gonna hear Arabic tonight. Because although this mishmash of identities and languages, it is what I consider my mother tongue. And speaking of mother tongue, I'm gonna start with a song called "Father." Makes sense, right? So this song, I actually wrote it following. I have to say that following nation state law here in Israel, where our identity and our language, the Arabic language, it was pushed aside a little bit. It used to be a formal language of Israel, the second formal language of Israel, and now it's like some kind of got demoted a little bit into some special privilege language or something like that. And it made me think of my father, a native Palestinian who comes from the Galilee, who was expelled from his village in 48, but came back with the family and established a life there under the military regime. And then studied medicine and came back to that village, the same village, to establish a family and have us and teach us solidarity and brotherhood, which is an amazing story. I mean, for somebody who went through all that expulsion and exile from his own home. My father and I, as I said, we were born in the same geographical spot, the same village, but we have different identities. My father was born in 36, and it was Palestine, and he felt Palestinian to the fullest, and he is connected to the land and to the olive trees and to the groves. And I came in 75, which was Israel, and grew up like an Israeli, listening to Shlomo Artzi and Israeli music and feeling that I need to belong in this country. And this duality might have seemed like some kind of a big contrast from the outside, but somehow I embraced this identity and this duality. But I did want to write down the story about these native Palestinians living within Israel, especially after nation-state law was voted for in Knesset. So, Father. بتقول احكي لن قصتنا احنا اللي بعدنا صامدين احنا اللي ما غلبتنا حروب وما فرفطتنا السنين احنا اللي بعدنا من جول زيتون زرعوا جد اللي مات احنا اللي باقيين على طول وقت ما تبدلت قيادات احنا اللي صوت الجبل فينا ورعشة غصون الكينا احنا القمح احنا الغربال احنا المنارة على المينا يابا 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 بشعر زي شجرة كبيرة عتيقة صار لها مهالأرض تدور وجذورها غميقة لكن ما إلها وسع وحياتها محجورة ومسيج السما فوقيها وغصونها مكسورة يا باردنا تحت جرينا بس وطن ما في ساكنين بيوت من حجر بس حاسين بمعنى في يابا 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 أنا تعباني بس مش يأساني يابا يابا أنا القمح أنا الغربة أنا المنارة على المينا يابا 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 So this matter of identity has always been a part of what I talk about, what I deal with in my music, in every thing that I do, every art that I make. And as I said, I'm a multidisciplinary artist. But in this song, I say to my dad, Dad, I'm tired. Yeah, sometimes I'm tired, but I am not despaired. Now, what am I talking about there? My conversation with my dad is about belonging, and my father, it's a given for him that he's rooted in this land. To me, there are questions about my belonging. Sometimes, as a Palestinian minority in Israel, I feel that I have no place here, especially with the latest divide between the people here. I feel sometimes that this place just does not want me around, and maybe I should search for my own place. But then again, so these are my tired moments, what I call them, my tired moments. But then again, I find myself waking up the next morning saying, "What are you talking about? I have no other place to go to. This is my homeland. This is where I belong. These trees, the same way that my dad feels belonging to this land and to the trees, to the olive trees, the same belonging is in my heart. So I don't have another place. But sometimes I feel this fatigue of the complexity of this place, and it's normal. And I guess as an artist, I'm allowed to ask these questions and to share these questions that I have in my heart. But another song that talks about this thin line of identities, or I call it acrobacy of identity, walking the thin lines between identities, is my next song called Bahlawan. This is the theme song from my first album that was issued in 2009. So Acrobat. ماشي على أوتار مشدودة إيدي على جناب ممدودة بلا أي ضمان ولا شبكة أمان بهلوان بلا أي ضمان ولا شبكة أمان بهلوان معلقة بين أرض وسما وريح مجنونة خطوة ورا خطوة عالحبل موزونة أي شي بصير أي خلل صغير بطير أي شي بصير أي خلل صغير بطير أنا دايما كنت هيك دايما عالآخر عالطرف وانتي دايما خايف علي يمكن خايف ينعرف إنه بلاي ضمان ولا شبكة أمان بهلوان وأي شي بصير أي خلل صغير بطير بطير آه آه أنا دايما كنت هيك دايما على آخر الطرف وانتي دايما خايف علي يمكن خايف ينعرف انه بلاي ضمان ولا شبكة امان بهلوان وإيش بصير أي خلل صغير بطير بطير بطير. All right. So this next song is to a completely different but very similar kind of subject. Again, about identity, but as a woman this time. So since a very early age, I was bothered with the matter of gender, only for the reason that I felt that there was inequality in the place where I was brought up, where I was born and raised, between men and women. I come from an Arab village, a Palestinian village in the north of Israel. Now, my village is very liberal and very progressive. However, and no matter how non-religious it is, still the Arab community is still more conservative than the Western community. And I'm talking about like 35 years ago. Expectations from women were way different than expectations from men. And I could feel that difference of how my brothers are treated and how I'm treated, and what is expected of them and what is expected of me. They could run outside, yell and climb trees, and I was encouraged to sit with my legs crossed and learn knitting. So it was a double standard, and I was really kind of pissed at it from a very early age. And some of my first songs ever were songs about women, about myself as a girl, not even a woman yet. And I'm talking about first songs like 13, 14 years of age, writing songs about women who suffer violence in their home, in what is supposed to be the safest place for them, and about my freedom to be who I am, regardless of my gender or sex. And so these were like the first songs I ever wrote, even before the political issue and before the Palestinian identity became an issue, which happened only when I left the village and went to study in Haifa and continued on to Tel Aviv. And suddenly I felt like I was the Palestinian in the bunch, the Palestinian in school, in the music school or whatever. But before that, it was all about being a girl and feeling equal and wanting to be equal. And this subject, I'm very sad to say that this is one of the things that I was always hoping that I would write these songs and they would become irrelevant years after. But I'm very sad to say that these songs are still very, very relevant in our days. And it doesn't matter where around the world, women are still in the struggle of being equal and treated equal. However, this is a song that I issued a year ago, exactly in March, for International Women's Day. This was my celebration of women. This was my song to encourage women to be who they are. ما تترددي ما تطلعي لورا امشي تلا النور اللي فيكي تخافي يا بنتي، ما عاد في شي يقدر يأذيكي. ما تترددي ولا تتسمعي لحدا، ما تخلي الناس تكسر لك عزيمي. ضلك ماشي لو الدرب تميل، إذا القلب صحيح ما في هزيمة. ما في هزيمة. ما في هزيمة. انت ما تترددي ولا تتأسفي على إشي، وحرص النور، النور اللي فيكي. لا تخافي يا أختي، فيكي نور، خلي يهديكي، خلي يهديكي النور اللي فيكي، 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 النور اللي فيكي. Okay, we'll leave the ukulele and we'll go back to the guitar. Thank you, ukulele. And I'm gonna finish my session with a song that practically embodies everything that I believe in. This is my anthem for human solidarity all around the world. This is a poem by Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, late Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, and it's called Think of Others. You're going to hear it in Arabic and then in English, and this wonderful English translation was made by Akhinua Amnini. You might know her by Noah. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for having me in this session, and I hope you enjoyed. Think of others. وأنت تعد فطورك فكر بغيرك، لا تنسى قوت الحمام. وأنت تخوض حروبك فكر بغيرك، من يطلبون السلام. وأنت تسدد فاتورة الماء فكر بغيرك، من يرضعون الغمام. وأنت تعود إلى بيتك فكر بغيرك، لا تنسى شعب الخيام. وأنت تنام وتحصي الكواكب فكر بغيرك، من لم يجد حيزا للمنام. وأنت تحرر نفسك بالاستعارات فكر بغيرك، من فقدوا حقهم في الكلام. وأنت تفكر بالآخرين البعيدين فكر بنفسك. قل ليتني شمعة في الظلام، ليتني شمعة في الظلام. As you prepare your evening meal, think of how the others feel. Don't forget to feed the hungry dove. As you wage your wars with guns, think of all the other ones, those who still believe in peace and love. As you pay for running water, think of someone's son or daughter, nursed by clouds beneath a starry dome. As you return from work tonight, think of others and their plight, those who live in camps and dream of home. As you lay your head to rest, dreaming deep, remember those who have no place to sleep. As you let your words run free in rhyme or tongue in cheek, remember those who've lost their very right to speak. And as you think of others far away, think of yourself and say, if only I could be a candle in the dark, I wish I were a candle in the dark. If only I could be, if only I could be a candle in the dark. If only I could be, if only I could be a candle in the dark. I come from a mixed family. My father is Palestinian, my mother is Bulgarian, and I grew up in Israel. Needless to say that this brought already a mixture of cultures and influences into my life. So I listened to Arabic music all my life since I was born. But then again, also Bulgarian folk music was part of my life since a very early age. And they have similarities, the Arabic and the Bulgarian music. They are very melodic. They are guttural. They come from the gut. They come from a very certain guttural sound. They have all these ornaments. However, the Bulgarians are the masters of harmonies and dissonance harmonies. So it's not even Western kind of harmonies. It's very weird kind of harmonies. The Westerners run away from that kind of harmony. So they like to sing in clusters. And this is folk music. This somehow got developed in the fields or in the forests. I don't know. This is their folk music. And the Arabic music is strictly melodic when you think about it. Orchestras, full orchestras that play classical Arabic music play everything in unison, which is one melody. Everybody's playing the same melody. There are no harmonies. The harmony came into the Arabic music lately, I think in the last century. That's it. And then again, growing up, I listened to the Israeli radio. So a lot of influences from whoever was on the radio, speaking Hebrew, singing in Hebrew. Israeli music is influenced by the whole world because everybody's somehow an immigrant here, so they brought their own influences with them. However, I also loved rock and progressive rock growing up. So Pink Floyd was my favorite all-time band, and I practically studied their records. I would sit in my room as a teenager with my headphones on and repeatedly listening to cassettes. Remember when we had cassettes and we ruined the cassettes from the multiple times that we would listen, and then I had to buy another set of cassettes, especially The Wall. The Wall was like I went crazy for The Wall by Pink Floyd. Later on, I got exposed to jazz, Latin music, and folk music from around the world, African, Greek, Turkish, Iranian, or Persian, I don't know what the correct way of calling it. All these influences sneak into my music making whenever I have a chance. So I've always had this music that gets influenced by a lot of things that I like listening to. And I guess that's the unique mixture of things that I do. If I had to define the music that I do, I would say it's American folk in Arabic with world influences. Because if you take a song of mine and you translate it into English, like think of others, for example. وأنت تعد فطورك فكر بغيرك لا تنس قوت الحمام. Okay, go. As you prepare your evening meal, think of how the others feel. Don't forget to feed the hungry dove. You kind of get a country song. But of course, when you add in the language, the Arabic language, and the ornaments, and then again all the influences that I bring through instruments and arrangements, then you get all this mixture of sounds into the music. So that was me, Mira Awad from Tel Aviv. Bye bye.